Welcome to Through the Ringer. I'm your host, Tate Frazier. We got a fun show today. We're talking UFC 301 with Chuck Mindenhall. But first and foremost, we're talking NBA with Tyler Parker in studio. Tyler Parker, good to see you, man.
What's up, buddy? Good to see you.
I'm fired up. We got a lot to talk about. There's a lot happening in the playoffs.
It's a busy time of year.
Can you just generally, and I feel like this is just for the casual fans that watch NBA basketball, the whiplash of the takes. Like, as someone who lives in the middle of all this deluge, how do you deal with it for the common fan?
I try to always tell myself that the playoffs are a marathon that people pretend the entire time is a sprint.
Yes, right. 100 meter is what they want.
I think that the playoffs get discussed like the finish line is right there.
Right.
And it's actually way over there, but just the take sphere and
the game one overreactions, I feel like that should be its own sort of pool of takes that we should put in.
Well, it's also like people react so hard sometimes to some of these blowouts. And when you think about it, every single year in almost every single series, at least once or twice, there's some big blowout. And a lot of times the team that got blown out still winds up winning the series. But it just things can steamroll because, you know, changes have been made. They've, you know, some
injuries happen.
Whatever. And
right.
then and they have to have time to adjust. The blowout happens. Okay, let's see what went wrong. They figured it out, and that's that. But yeah, people get really up in arms, man. It's pretty exhausting to, even when it's good for you. Even when like the Thunder are up 2-0, you're like. People are like, people are like, hey man, maybe the Nuggets. I don't know. You could, and then it's like, let's just get to New Orleans. Let's get to the hotel, and like see how we look.
Let's finish
on
the
series,
road. Yeah, and just see what happens. Because you know, people forget 2021. We saw Phoenix win Game 1, Game 2. Chris Paul says to the media, "I'm addicted to playing in the NBA Finals," and then you know, Giannis and the Bucks, you know, rattle off 4 straight.
My man's been going through some serious withdrawals ever since.
Serious withdrawals. Dwayne Wade did this to the Dallas Mavericks. They were up 2-0, and
you gotta,
he rips off 4 straight. So things can happen in a series. So chill with your overreactions.
Right, and Dwayne Wade's been on both sides of it. Dwayne Wade and LeBron doing the fake cough whenever they're making fun of Dirk, like he wasn't sick or whatever. And it's like, all right, well, Dirk's going to go Viking on y'all's ass.
Welcome to the basketball gods. They move quickly. Let's talk about Game 6. The Game 6, of course, I'm talking about is the Dallas Mavericks taking on the Clippers. Mavericks -3 in this game. And this has been a series that, Kawhi Leonard misses Game 1. Then he comes back. He's supposed to be the savior. They actually look better without Kawhi. Game 5, nobody looked good on the Clippers side in that game. And you got jokes about James Harden being a Boeing 747 with the stat line. I mean, all types of stuff was coming out of this. But what are your thoughts on the Mavericks right now and the Clippers right now in this series?
I mean, going back to what we said, I'm trying hard not to overreact to last night. It's very, very difficult, especially knowing the history that Harden has in some of these big moments. I mean, it was from jump last night. Clippers got the tip. Harden got the ball. He went to dribble, and he dribbled it too high and had to like regather it. It was like the ball had too much air in it or something. It
felt like the Monstars came and got him again.
He was flummoxed from like the moment the game started, and it didn't get any better, and the handle was wonky. So it's very, very difficult for me to trust him. That being said, this Clippers team has been weird enough over the course of this year that if you told me they went down to Dallas and somehow stole Game 6,
right.
I really wouldn't bat an eye. I mean, Paul George can get hot. They obviously have the personnel to do it. If you're asking me to put all my money on something, give me the Mavs, because when Luka's got it going like this, and Kyrie's playing well, and they can get other guys going, that's whenever they get so dangerous. Like Kleber hits 5 threes last night. He goes 5 for 7. Kleber hadn't done jack for basically the entire series.
And to do it on the road.
Yeah. And so it's whenever they're able to get other people going, the kind of pressure that gets put on the defense, especially because then like you've got guys flying out to the perimeter to try to contest these 3-pointers, and then Gafford's loose on the boards, stuff like that, Lively too. And so they're a difficult beast to try to tame. And I think if you're, especially when you're giving up possessions like Harden was doing last night, it's really, really hard when you get behind the 8 ball like that to try to make up any ground whenever you're just the bed constantly from a possessions perspective. And they get into these dribbly montages where Harden's just out there.
And Paul George. I mean, I don't know how many times I've seen Paul George get by his guy and then snatch it back so he's back in front of him. I don't know if it's a tick or what it is, but and I was there. I'm watching it live. I'm like, what is going on? It's like he was like, let me have another dance. Like, let's do it again.
They're both so. I was there last night too. They're both so schizophrenic. Like and not just from game to game, but from quarter to quarter. It even feels like possession to possession. Sometimes it just like you say, they get monstered for a little while and they don't know what the hell's going on. The Mavericks, feel very mortal to me, but they are also extremely dangerous. And whenever you have two guys like Luka and Kyrie who can go get a bucket in a phone booth in these late shot clock situations like you have to have, it feels like it's going to be the Mavericks just because it's going to be at home. But yeah, like I say, I mean, nothing would surprise me in that series.
Yeah, the Mavs defensively at the end of the year, last 20 to 25 games, they've been incredible. I mean, they've been the best defense in basketball, and shout out to Sean Sweeney for being a part of that. So the Mavericks defense, they can hang their hat on that, especially the rim protection of Lively, even though he is a rookie. That's been a nice piece, and maybe that's why Paul George keeps snatching it back, because he's like, there's still Gafford or Lively underneath the basket, so I don't want to drive into that situation. So maybe there's some reasons for it, but I'm right there with you. The Mavs look like the team that's going to win it, but right now, the Thunder, you're sitting there, you're waiting for one of these teams. Is there a team that you prefer to face? Would it be the Clippers, obviously, just because of the Kawhi situation?
I think probably because of the Kawhi situation, and because if you have an opportunity to play James Harden in the postseason, it seems like it usually works out pretty well for you.
Sign me up.
And so I would probably rather the Clippers just because the Luka and Kyrie duo, shot making wise, can get so volcanic.
And it seems like they love each other a little bit. Like Lucas said, he's letting Kyrie down. I mean, how many times did we ever hear that sort of language?
Sure.
During Kyrie's Boston or Cleveland?
Yeah,
Brooklyn,
I mean, vibes seem pretty good there right now.
Right.
And it's hard for them to not whenever you're up 31 on the road.
Barkley's giving compliments. He's like, it looks like Kyrie's dressed for work. Russ looks like he's dressed to go to sleep. You know what I mean? There's I don't know what to think when it comes to the role players on the Clippers. They are so up and down. Powell some games goes ballistic. Other games you have to remind yourself that he's even out there. You know what I mean? Bones Highland comes in and has 11 points in 7 minutes, kind of out of nowhere.
I know, yeah.
Right.
I mean, Zoo played well last night and has played well this year and over the course of the series, and defensively has been solid, but you feel him, bumping up against, like he's at his ceiling, right? Like you're not going to expect Zoo to go down there and get you like 35 and 14 or something like that. If they're going to get a win down there, and if they're going to continue on in the playoffs, the only way that happens is if Harden or George find their rhythm and get hot again. That's the only way. And they got to be able to get these guys who, like, Amir Coffey's not going to go get his own. You know what I mean? They got to be able to go and set the table for him a little bit. And when they're so shaky in the first place, nobody else can get into any sort of rhythm, because Lord knows Harden's not going to be moving and screening and trying to bop the ball around, right?
And Westbrook was 5 for 8 in game 1, and now he's 4 for 32 since. So I mean, that's the other part, right?
No, when you throughout, especially whenever the Clippers were at their best. I mean, they had a stretch there where I think from like beginning of December to end of January, they might have lost like 5 games. They went like something like 26-5. And during those times, even if the starters weren't right, Russ could come in and kind of inject some life, get some loose balls, get some rebounds, shotgun it.
Yeah.
Emotionally, I think so for sure. And last night there was no touch whatsoever. I mean, it was one of the bad Russ games. They were thrilled every time he shot the ball. And especially if it was a 3, it definitely felt like a win for the Mavs and something they were trying to make happen.
And we kind of saw Russ snap in this series. We were talking about the overreactions, right? When he gets the double technical ejection, right? PJ Washington's doing the flex to the crowd.
Right.
For me, that felt like, unfortunately, that's the series. For whatever reason, I did feel like it turned there. And without Kawhi coming in to save the day, I do feel like it is turned sour.
Yeah, and it's one of those things like because Kawhi is in and out, I do think it can freak out the Clippers a little bit just from like a scoring hierarchy perspective because Paul George doesn't know how hard he's going to have to go. He like sort of he's a little bit too happy to settle into that number 2 role. You know what I mean? And
He's like, I'm good to take 15 shots, but they're like, we actually need 30.
Yeah, and it's almost like, no, Kawhi's back, but you still need to be leading the scoring punch here and let Kawhi play off of you. And it's
not Batman and Robin,
right?
You know, it's 2 Avengers. You know, you guys are both important to the whole makeup of this thing. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk to Tyler Parker about what's happening in OKC, what he's seeing. We're also going to talk about the Cavs, the Magic, the Timberwolves, and the Nuggets. We'll be right back after the break.